Welcome to the Limitless Ladies Network podcast, where we are limitless in sharing lessons to advocate and drive insightful, empathetic self care. The Limitless Ladies Network is dedicated to nourishing minds, educating on self care, and facilitating transformative experiences. Our mission is to guide women to age with grace, cultivate good health, and build meaningful connections to bring happiness into their lives. We strive to empower the ladies of the community so they may successfully advocate for themselves and embrace a journey of holistic well being. Please note that the information and opinions shared on this podcast are for educational purposes only and are not intended in any way to be used as medical advice. Please seek a medical professional for any health related matters and always refer to our full disclosure in our show notes.
Okay.
Hello. Today we are speaking with Mary Myers Pasquino, a clinical social worker in private practice at her own practice called Spectrum Family Therapy in New London, Connecticut. Mary works with children, young adults, and families, and has a special interest in helping neurodivergent people. People who come into her office are treated with respect, positivity, and empathy, of course. I believe that each person has a gift, or she believes each person has a gift that offers the world lots for them to have as a goal to help, and her goal is to help each one of them live their life that they want to live. She became interested in working with neurodivergent people when she was a social worker in a school for students with behavioral disorders. She truly enjoys working with them and to tell people that she has more toys than anyone else, at least in any office that she knows, which I think is fantastic. And I want to play with your toys.
Come by anytime. I like to play with my toys.
What else can you do, right? That's great. So
I could
welcome,
always
Mary.
do paperwork, but I'd rather play with my toys.
Yes. So
Yes.
welcome, Mary. It is a pleasure to
Thank you.
have you with us today.
Thank you. I appreciate the request to be here.
So neurodivergence is kind of a big buzzword that I have heard around for quite some time now, and am really interested in learning more about what it is. So
Okay.
can you just kind of give us a good overview of what the differences are? Like I've heard ADHD kind of get categorized in that, but I think there's some other things associated with it as well.
There certainly are. Um, Neurodiversity, that coin was termed by Judy Singer, who was an Australian doctoral candidate in, I think, 98. Um, and that just uh, recognizes that everybody has a different kind of brain and has, like I said, like I asked you to say in the introduction, has something to give the world. Um, in my own household, my husband is a computer guy, very organized, likes to alphabetize things. Can't do that. I cannot do that. I like to talk and play with my toys and stuff. We're very different people, but it works out really well because we have different strengths and we build on those.
Mhm.
And the concept of neurodivergence, which first began, sorry, I'm checking my notes here, with a, a landmark speech by Jim Sinclair in 1993 called Don't Mourn for Us,
Hmm.
um, talks about the fact that individuals can be what they call neurodivergent as opposed to a person who's neurotypical. So there's a bit of um, sort of what you expect.
Okay.
There's a bit of a social element to those terms. But they're both just ways to describe how somebody interacts in their own body and with the world outside of them, including the people that they interact with every day. Was that too long?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
perfect.
So it includes things like autism, ADHD, um, obsessive compulsive disorder, uh, many of the learning disorders like dyscalculia, and which is problems with math. Um, yep, just forgot the word for having trouble with reading, which I should know.
Dyslexia?
Dyslexia, thank you. I'm sorry, the brain didn't go there.
That's
Um,
okay.
so it also depending on it's not a well-defined term at this point. So you can go onto websites or talk to people who say that it covers about 5 different diagnoses. Um, Or you can find places that say, oh, it's 38 different things.
Wow.
But it's mostly just the concept that um, people's brains work differently. And so they present with different strengths and different challenges in the world.
Absolutely. And I can attest with the fact of my husband is super organized and very methodical and a little OCD. Me, on the other hand, I am in your realm. I don't know if it's a ladies thing or not, but I feel like I've got ADHD and I'm like, I got a bazillion different things happening in my brain. I have a lot of things all over my desk sometimes. I'm working on multiple things. And
Yeah,
he's like, I got to work on this one thing. I can't start something else until like this thing. So.
right. So you struggle with the organization, but you also have a great imagination and a great motivation to do things.
Oh yeah, I'm
Those are the strengths
totally,
that you offer
yep. I
in
can
your,
attest to that. I find creative. Obviously, I'm like
Mhm.
I'm building out a business that is
Yeah,
not really something that I've seen before, I guess. And love the creative side of it. So
beautiful.
yeah. So tell me a little bit about, as we talked briefly just now, the differences between men and women in our brains. Do you
Right.
find that women, because of our hormones, tend to be a little bit more on the, ADHD kind of side of things with that disorganization and all of that happening?
So I do have strong feelings about that. Um, Back in like the early 1960s, late 1950s, something like that. And unfortunately, I don't know if we've changed as much as I would like to think. Some researcher, it's been a while since I read this, but obviously made a big impact on me, uh, surveyed psychiatrists for the characteristics of an adult male, characteristics of an adult female, and the characteristics of a child. And the adult female and the child were pretty much the same.
Really?
Mhm. We are expected to act like children, obedient and things like that. Hopefully, we've grown out of some of that, but it still amazes me that my mother couldn't get her own credit card until I was a teenager. She
Yeah.
had to only have a credit card in my father's name.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of that was the era, I guess, of,
It was, but you still find in kindergarten classes that boys are called on more than girls. And so for a girl who is kind of wool gathering in the corner, either because she's ADHD and she's just not focused, she's autistic and she's more inside, dealing with her own inner interoception, her feelings inside her body, or maybe she's anxious, but she's sitting there quietly. That's fine. She's just a quiet little girl.
right.
Whereas a boy, well, why isn't he out playing with his friends? And unfortunately, that still occurs even today. So I think that there's very definitely a social construct that leads to more men being diagnosed with neurodivergent characteristics, at least as children. Um, it is true that male hormones, the testosterone is aligned with aggression. Um, but I don't necessarily think that it's true that women more are less organized by virtue of their genetics. It may be that we aren't taught those skills as well. We're not expected to know those things. I think that is decreasing. I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I know some pretty
but
disorganized men too, so.
absolutely. Yeah. And actually, when it comes to autism, it's 4 to 1, 3 to 1, males to females.
Really?
Mhm. And there may be a genetic component to that. We're learning more all the time about the genetic components of autism and ADHD and some of the other
Mhm.
brain-based diagnoses. But like I said, I think there's also a social construct to it.
Oh, definitely. And I guess I'm a little surprised to hear that in today's society that it is still not quite as obvious, I guess, that a younger girl and a boy, like you said, they're like she's being very quiet, but it's not really viewed that she has ADHD or any of those other like dyslexia or things like that. Like, is it just not picked up enough because she is typically more quiet? More
Mhm.
reserved, more that not quite so outgoing, I guess, as the her female or her male counterparts that are, they have all that testosterone and they're running around and they have all this energy.
Well, I
Um,
think it's not so much that she has less of the testosterone or whatever, but her being quiet is not seen as a problem.
right. That's what
Whereas
I
a
mean. Yeah.
boy being quiet is that's not right. I
Yep.
mean, there's a classic study from the 70s, I think, where they had a baby in a diaper, handed it off to different adults, and sometimes the baby's name was David, and sometimes the baby's name was Lisa. And David was, it was the same baby the whole time.
Mhm.
Yeah. But there was a diaper. So, in an infant, you don't have those differences yet. And the male, the David babies were played with a lot more aggressively, more physically, where the Lisa babies would be sung to and cradled and rocked, but not moved as much, not as physically played with.
Hmm. That's
So
sad to hear.
yeah,
Yeah, that is sad
it
to
is.
hear.
Mhm.
Wow. I guess it
And
still exists that we have this divide almost of how you should really interact with boys versus girls, right? That societal norm of, treat them rough and have them go outside and play and get dirty, and girls have to be inside and they need to do, cooking and playing with dolls and
yep,
that
you
kind of
still
thing.
hear, well, boys will be boys. That's still
Yeah.
a common thing. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. Which doesn't, I don't mean that to negate the fact that there really are neurodivergent differences,
Yeah.
but um, even the idea of neurotypical depends on somebody has to define what's typical.
Right.
What's usual? What do you expect?
Right. Like who defines the neurotypical?
The American school system, in large
Oh,
part.
wow.
Yeah. It's we have education for everyone, which is a beautiful thing,
Yep.
but you can only individualize it so much unless you're willing to push taxes through the roof and greatly increase spending. But you have 30 kids and one teacher.
It's hard to manage, yeah, when you have
Yeah,
a lot of different personalities that
mhm,
you're working with at such a young age, I would
right.
imagine. Yeah,
Again, different children with different gifts to give and
right,
different challenges. And how do you meet the challenges of every child and accentuate the gifts and their strengths if there's one of you and 30 of them?
right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Have you found that there's any links to your patients with their lifestyle or nutrition that impact how they react to things?
It's pretty common for um, kids with autism sometimes have very um, strong reactions to different foods. Not all kids, but some do. And of course, kids with ADHD sometimes just don't sit still enough to actually eat. They're so busy running around. Um, so there's definitely something there. And especially kids with autism sometimes, or with other, with like, they might have um, just genetics that um, are experienced as intellectual disabilities but also have a digestive component to them.
Mhm. That makes sense.
So, but there isn't any evidence that um, there's any like consuming a certain food, even sugar. It's kind of you know your own child and you know what impacts them, but overall it doesn't seem like a lot of sugar leads to ADHD,
Right. I
which
think
is
that
kind
if,
of an old.
yeah, I mean, I suppose that if you have some of the genetics part of it, or yeah, I mean, I know sugar is not good for a lot of people.
True.
So I think that it may exacerbate some symptoms probably, but
Absolutely, yeah. And
unfortunately, sugar's in a lot of things.
it is in a lot of things. And sugar also can impact your sleep, which
Yes.
also impacts your ability to focus and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and if
Yeah.
we're not sleeping, then we are not healing, we are not resting, we are not able to think clearly. Then we have brain fog throughout the day, and it just gets exacerbated and kind of snowballs into lots of other issues. But
Very
we're going
true.
to talk
Yeah.
about sleep.
That's adults and children both. Yeah.
Yes.
As a therapist, I tell my clients often, in fact, to the point where they roll their eyes sometimes, that eating right, getting enough sleep and exercise is as important for your mental health as drugs or therapy.
More
And
so
so
important, right? Because and it's
that's,
free. It
yeah.
well, the food may not be free, but the sleep, right? And your
True.
exercise can pretty
Hmm.
much do that anywhere.
Right. Yeah. And
Yeah.
you pretty much do have to eat something.
Yes.
So, yeah. So if you can make it as healthy as possible, that's a good idea.
Absolutely. I'm
Hmm.
all about that. I
Yeah.
am as a, kind of health coach. Yep,
Yep. Yeah.
absolutely. So
If
tell me how you can help your clients to build their self-esteem because I would imagine that them, whether they're younger or older, right, and they kind of get this diagnosis for
mm,
and
yes.
they have this label really, and they can be kind of dealing with that internally, also externally. If anyone knows about this label, then they have negative self-talk, they have to deal with peers. So,
Yep.
how do you help your clients to kind of build up that confidence to overcome some of that?
Well, a lot of that is in the relationship that I build with them. I, as you said in my introduction, as I've said, everybody has something to offer. And it may be that someone who, like yourself, you're creative because your brain goes in many different directions. Other people may be very impacted. For example, you can't see, but I have fluorescent lights in my office and they are not turned on
Mm.
because that's not a good working environment for me. Some people really flourish with remote work where they don't have to deal with social interactions, but they still have something to offer. In fact, at one point, I'm not sure if this is still true, um, the greatest concentration of people diagnosed with autism in our country was in Silicon Valley because some people with autism are very detail oriented. They actually overfocus or underfocus, but it's not so much um, attention deficit as an inability to regulate their attention.
Mm.
Um, and so anyway, so yes, there's some very successful. In fact, Bill Gates identifies as autistic, as does oh the guy from Blues Brothers, Dan Aykroyd.
Wow.
Hmm. And many other like pretty famous people
Hmm.
because there's some strengths to it, definite strengths. Um, but that's something that I focus on. Um, a lot of people with autism are very uh, comfortable with rules. They like the predictability.
Mm.
So if they've been taught that kindness is important, you can trust that they will be kind. I can trust they will almost always be on time for their appointments because that's important to them, that kind of routine and predictability. So, yeah, it's just a matter of recognizing that the diversity of all the people in our society, whether you've got a label or not, is what makes our society beautiful. So years ago, I worked in a job where I had um, a coworker who tried to get me fired once a year. And she'd have me called in and she'd be like, there's something wrong with you. And at one point, after one of those meetings, 3 hours later, you know how you think of the right response 3 hours later?
Of course.
Mm, I thought I should have said, of course there's things wrong with me. Do you want the list alphabetically or in order of appearance? Because there's things wrong with everybody. Nobody's perfect. We're not designed to be perfect. We're designed to need each other. Human beings are designed to be social because we each have something to give. That's why we have communities. That's why we have families and friendships and all the most beautiful things in the world, because we have neurodivergence.
100%.
Yes. So I hope, my hope is that is why people feel better after they talk to me, because I truly believe that.
That is a beautiful thing.
Thank you.
What are some of the most effective strategies for improving focus, attention, executive dysfunction in daily lives with adults that you've dealt with?
It depends on the person. Different people have different things.
Right.
So basically, there are environmental strategies. So I realize a lot of my examples have to do with children because I do work with children, but children or adults, if you have a dedicated space for homework or your work that has proper lighting and the tools that you need, it's much easier to focus. If you're working on something and your pen runs out of ink and you have to go looking for another pen,
Mm.
you're never going back to.
Right.
So there's some environmental things that can be done. And those are things that if you work in a neuro-friendly workplace or a school that is interested in being as environmentally friendly as possible for neurodivergent students, those are things that are easy to do. So kids can take their tests in a quiet room without other kids around, that sort of thing. Somebody who in a workplace might want to work remotely or have a cubicle around them to reduce their input. Um, then there's the internal things, such as making sure that you take a break every 25 minutes, you take a break for 5 minutes and then come back to it. That's an important one for some people. Um, I have games that I play with kids that I played as a child that I didn't know helped to develop focus. So, do you know what Simon is? With a
Yeah.
different, yeah,
Yes.
that game is practicing focus.
Hmm.
Um, things like Mother May I and what's the other one? Anyway, those oh, Simon Says.
Right.
You have to pay attention.
Right.
But you're paying attention because it's fun, not because somebody yelled at you and said, pay attention now. Um, for other things include like guided meditations, progressive relaxation, those kinds of things that um, change your nervous system from sympathetic, which is the fight, flight, or freeze response, to parasympathetic, which is the rest and digest response. You can flip that switch in your body through meditations, deep breathing, things like that, and actually change the way that your body is reacting so that you're able to focus better.
Mm. So
So it depends on.
you teach some of those to the children, like
Oh,
meditation and deep breathing. Do
mhm,
they
yeah.
use those? Do they like them?
Um, yeah, mostly. The I have a Bop It game that kids love. I instead of teaching, well, I do teach like for adults, it's called box breathing. Do you know?
Yes.
So, okay. But I teach starfish breathing. So you in, out, in, out, out, in.
Yep.
With the little, yeah. Um, and then I read them a story about a starfish, and then I teach them starfish breathing or birthday candle breathing. Because
Hmm.
in order to blow out your birthday candle, you gotta. So, and then I try to incorporate the parents in the room as well so that they can go home and reinforce these things at home. So yeah, with all of that, when it comes to like guided relaxation, I have some really fun stories that lead to guided relaxation.
Nice.
Yeah. So yeah, I try to make it child friendly. When I worked at the elementary school, the principal was very big on kids learn when they're having fun. So I start with fun and then the learning comes.
Fun is always good. We always learn
Mhm.
better when it is an activity that we're truly engaged with, right? If we're
Yes.
bored, no
Yes.
one wants to do it.
Right. So like meditation for people will tell you, I have ADHD, I can't meditate. Well, you can. Everybody thinks meditating is the guy on top of the mountain in the robes going, uh.
Right.
And that's one way to do it. That's a very good way to meditate. But you could also um, just focus on your breathing and look around at the world around you when you're walking the dog. What works for me, my version of meditation is I walk the dog by the water and I look at the light on the water and I can just feel my body settling down and becoming calmer. That's a form of mindfulness or meditation as well.
It is. It's
Yeah.
basically just being aware. When
Hmm.
I
Absolutely.
started meditating, I thought the same thing that I couldn't like because my brain again is like all over the place.
Hmm.
And I was like,
Yep.
how can I possibly sit for, 15 minutes or so and meditate or even 5 minutes? But I started doing it and then it got easier for me to be able to just learn to sit and listen to your breath and or just, make a sound and
Hmm.
feel the vibration of you making the sound and you can hear between your ears.
Yeah.
There's many different ways to get to mindfulness and it's just
Right.
finding the right techniques that work for everybody or for yourself.
Absolutely. Right. Yep. And so I try to work with people on each sense to see which one works best for them. For some people, like you said, a sound is very centering. Some people like to look at a candle or some sort of an icon or something. Yeah. Um, some people carry worry stones and or they have something soft that they can touch. Um, and for some people, when they start, um, if they start getting very anxious, peppermint or something like that, or holding a cold ice cube, like there's a hot ice cube, holding an ice cube in their hand or splashing cold water on their face is what does it for them. Whatever sense works for you, or using multiple senses.
I love that to be able to pull in all the senses and be able
Mhm.
to have a bunch of different tools within the tool belt that you can just pull out because sometimes you might be in school and you need to be able to deep breathe because you can't go to the bathroom for some reason, you don't have the pass or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
But
So
having that ability to kind of pick from multiple different things to choose to get into that calm state is always good.
because you have to have different strategies for different times and places. And the only one that works all the time is breathing because nobody ever objects to you breathing.
True. Right. And you
Yeah.
can do it at your own pace. You can,
Yep.
hopefully you're not too deep breathing, I guess, making too loud noises to be distracting. But I
Right.
mean, we all breathe, so that's the perfect
Exactly.
one.
Yeah. So some people like to play with little fidget gadgets or something, but you can't do that in the middle of math class or when you're supposed to be working on your computer, getting paid for it. But
Right.
you can, or when you're driving, not good. But you can always breathe.
True. Very
Yeah.
true. How do you think that adults, kind of flipping back to them again, we talked a
Mhm.
little bit about it, but how best for them to leverage their workspace? You talked a little bit about like clearing off your desk, maybe having everything set up similar to a student, I would imagine, right? Like you should have everything in your spot. I find that sometimes like I get hyper focused on things. And
Mhm.
then you mentioned like take 5 minutes as in a break after 20 minutes. And I'm like, okay, then I'm gone for 15 minutes because I get distracted. I'm like, oh yeah, I have to get back to that.
Mhm. Again, it depends. Different things work for different people.
Mm.
Your brain, once it gets engaged, stays engaged, and great. And that probably also has to do with the fact that you are more likely to actually like what you're doing. If you're doing a job that you don't really care for or studying a topic you don't really care for, um, the break time makes it, you chunk it up a little bit, makes it a little bit easier. Um, so I think you're asking more about like the environment, like environmental changes.
Yeah, so I guess for like anyone that has to go to work, right? So the
Mhm.
ladies that are
Okay,
listening, and if they have to go into an
absolutely.
office and they have these struggles, you mentioned lighting. Like, are there
Uh-huh.
any other things that they could possibly set up themselves so that they'll work more productively?
Mhm. Um, so certainly lighting, noise. Some people have a very difficult time with, I, because I'm pretty verbal and not very visual, but I have a hard time tuning out human voices, and I can't listen to two conversations at once. I'm also a little bit sensitive to loud noises, so I actually carry earplugs, and just real small ones, so they're not really obvious. But some people will use noise canceling headphones, or I used to have a coworker who played classical music when she needed to focus on paperwork. So you can do those kinds of things. Um, if you're prone to anxiety, there may be pictures that help you calm down, pictures of family um, or nature pictures, things like that. Or again, keep a thing of candy on your desk. Um, I have known people, particularly people who work, one person I'm thinking of who worked in retail food, serving people. And when it got to be too much, she could go in the back and just take ice and put it in her hands or put it on her face until she calmed down a little bit. And her boss understood and said, yeah, take your 5 minutes, do what you need to do, and then come back out. Because she was a great employee
Right.
until she was overwhelmed. And by doing this, she kept herself from being overwhelmed. Um, yeah,
That's good on her boss for recognizing
beautiful.
that she
Mhm.
needs this 5 minute break in order to
Yeah.
really be that very productive worker and employee,
Mhm.
server that she can be by giving her that opportunity to have that time.
Right. Yeah.
That's great. I'm
Yeah.
glad to hear that there are some places that are recognizing that we're all different, like you said. We have these differences and we are all unique. And we have to be able to be open to allowing each individual to find what's going to help them be productive because we all have talents. So,
Absolutely. We all have gifts. We all have something to give the world.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, this was great, Mary. I really
Well,
appreciate
thank you.
talking to us about neurodivergence and all of the techniques that can be used to help us to calm down our nervous system and ways that we can help us to focus, because I, for one, could use some focus sometimes. So this was great.
Well,
And
thank
where
you.
can people find you, Mary?
Well, I'm at 75 Granite Street in London. I don't have a website, but I am on Psychology Today, just underneath my name, either my name or the name of the practice, which is Spectrum Family Therapy, as you mentioned.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And I will put a link to your psychology link if
Okay.
you provide that to me into the show
Sure.
notes so anyone can kind of find you pretty easily.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely. And for any ladies out there, I appreciate you listening, of course. Please like this episode and share it with your friends or family members that also might be struggling with being neurodivergent because we're all different. And sign up for our email list so that you know when we have these other episodes coming out. Also, we have some events coming up. We have a ladies' night out coming up in March, and there will be another in June. I do them every few months where we can have some alternative practitioners come out and meet with ladies. So it's a little bit of a networking ladies fun night out at Lakeview Restaurant in Coventry. So that's on the website. And then also I'm doing some limitless living by lunar cycles and being able to align ourselves with the natural rhythms of the earth and just the moon. So follow us on social. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. Of course, like our channel, share our channel, subscribe, make a comment, and go to our website, limitlessladiesnetwork.com, where you can find all this information plus various different resources and some of our practitioners on our directory as well. Thank you very much, Mary.
Thank you. Appreciate the time.